Welcome, welcome, welcome. So we are going to go ahead and get started with today's State of Black Women report. I would like to thank all of our speakers for joining us today, along with our media that'll be joining. We have members from our membership and our advocacy board, our board of directors, and our research advisory board that are all here joining us today. So thank you all for joining. I do just want to go over a few housekeeping rules for today's call. First, we would just like for all of you to just please keep your mics on mute. For the purpose of today's meeting, this is going to be for our media outlets, so we will not be able to answer any general questions during the Q&A at the end. That will be reserved just for our media outlets. And we will do our questions by raising your hand feature, or you can type a question in the chat and we will ask that during the Q&A. Then lastly, if you can see my screen, how I have it, the side-by-side view, for you to view the presentation and the speakers when they come up, we recommend for you to put, your layout view in the side-by-side view. And then, all right, that are all of my notes for the welcome and housekeeping. We're going to keep things moving. And at this time, we are going to have introduction by our president and CEO, Kellie Todd Griffin.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are here for our third State of Black Women in California report, and we're really excited to bring you another report. We have been doing these reports since 2018. We did an additional report in 2022, and now we are doing our 2025 State of Black Women in California report. Let me just start by telling you a little bit about who we are as the California Black Women's Collective Empowerment Institute. We have been around since Karina's slide. Thank you. So we have been around since 2021. We actually started in 2018 with a collective of Black women from throughout California and to produce the State of Black Women in California report. And then we formalized in 2022 to become a nonprofit organization. We focus on data collection, policy change, and practice transformation. These pillars guide our approach to dismantling systemic barriers and building solutions that's rooted in Black women's lived experience. We are the founders of the Black Women's Think Tank that's housed at Cal State Dominguez Hills. We are the first policy think tank in the nation that exclusively focuses on the lived experiences of Black women and girls throughout California. We look at that through the lens of gender, race, and geography. We produce research, highlight disparities, and reveal untapped opportunities for transformation. The data is clear. To close those disparity gaps, we must create intentional pathways to opportunities. And today you'll hear about some of those, as well as some of our partners that we are in the trenches with to ensure that we have a clear path to success. Next slide. So our impact since we started in 22, we've trained middle schools, 500 middle schools and high school girls. We've given away 2,500 backpacks. We've given over $100,000 to organizations in California that focus on issues around Black women and girls. Karina, can you move your, thank you. One back, thank you. We've trained almost 1,500 Black women on leadership, economic mobility, and advocacy. We've honored over 200 Black women trailblazers, and we've produced 35 events. highlighting the beauty and brilliance of Black women and girls. And we've convened and engaged more than 25,000 Black women throughout California on a weekly basis. So let's get into what we're here for. Next slide. So our agenda is pretty simple. I'll give an overview of the state of Black women in California. Then our Honorable Holly J. Mitchell from LA County Second Supervisorial District will come up and speak. And Holly, the supervisor, has been part of this work since 2018. She spoke at our convening in Sacramento. Dr. Shikari Byerly from a veterans who does a lot of our qualitative research will be on hand to talk about some highlights around the overall Black California experience, as well as some of our additional research that we've done. And then we're going to bring in Dr. Krishana Hines Gaither from Mount St. Mary's University, Los Angeles. She's going to talk about some of the research that they have done around women in California. And then we're going to take a deeper dive in Black women experiences with some of our phenomenal Black women leaders, Karen Earl, Genesee Center, Sonia Young Adam of California Black Women's Health Project. And then I'm going to talk about our Saving Our Sisters initiative, and then we're going to go into our Q&A. Next slide. All right, living in California as a Black woman. What we know, what we need, and what we must do. So we're going to start with the State of Black Women in California report. And this is a snapshot. So what we know around economic inequality is that Black women are making 60 cents to every dollar white men, non-Hispanic white men earn in California. And when we look at single Black women, and we know that 67% of our households are headed by single moms, they make 56 cents to every dollar. It equates to about $42.7 billion of lost wages that Black women nationally lose due to pay disparities. If we were projected the year that the wage gap would close in California, it'd be 21-21. We know that 25% of Black women in California live below the federal poverty line, which doubles the rate of white women in California. 40% work in public sector jobs, often the lowest paid and last secure. And we know with the attacks on public sector, we've taken a huge hit in California, being the second largest percentage of federal workers. So we expect the number to, our poverty rates to increase. 80% of our households are headed by women who are the primary breadwinners in California. Next slide, please. Housing and childcare. For housing, Black women can spend up to 50% on housing, and approximately 70% for single moms on spend on childcare without subsidies. So CalWORK subsidies that provide childcare. We are 2 times likely to be unhoused as white women. 30% of all unhoused women in California are Black, although we only represent 6.6% of the population. And in LA County, Black women are evicted at nearly double the rate of any other groups. Next slide. Education and economic mobility. 90% of Black women have completed household rates. We have 25 have completed high school completion. We have 25% holding bachelor's degrees compared to 47% of white women. And we tend to have the highest percentage of student debt. Black women borrow more and repay less due to wage gaps. Next slide. Our health and well-being. We are 4 to 6 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes than white women. We are 41% higher having more breast cancer mortality rate, although we get breast cancer. We're the smallest percentage that get breast cancer. We have 1 in 3 delayed care because of costs, although 80% of us are insured or have some type of insurance, and 5 times higher with an HIV STI rates than white women, and 41% of us have obesity rates among Black women. These are all California data. And then next slide. And then we also did some work, and I'm sure Dr. Byerly will talk about workplace and leadership gaps. For every 100 men promoted, only 58 Black women advance. 54% of Black women say they're only, based on a survey that we've done, meaning they're the only Black women in the room. 3% hold executive leadership roles statewide, nearly 70%, even though we're nearly 7% of Black of women in California. And then 34% share of 0.34%, we share 0.34% of venture capital that goes to Black women entrepreneurs nationally. Next slide. One of our highlights, as always, is Black women's political power and civic engagement. 343 Black women served in elected office statewide, which is up from the 100 of Black women that served in 2018. We now have 2 state constitutional offices held by Black women, first time in history. And we have the highest percentage of voter turnout among all races and gender groups in the state. Next slide. And then violence and discrimination, 57% of Black women report discrimination at work, 55% say while shopping, 4 times higher hospitalization due to assault than white women, 32% of Black girls in juvenile justice system, only 14% of youth. Beauty standards, we also considered violence against Black women. Biases, racism have real consequences. Black women face discrimination, even how they wear their hair, how they look and wear their hair despite the Crown Act. Next slide. And then we have funding inequities. 0.5% share of the US Foundation dollars support women and girls of color. $15,000, the median grant size for Black women-led organization, which is less than the national median average. So we want change. So the state of Black women in California calls for equal pay and economic investment in Black women-led businesses and workplace pipelines, affordable housing, childcare to reduce structural burdens, maternal health equity through targeted state and local interventions, leadership and civic pathways to ensure representation match our impact, and sustain funding for Black-led or women-led organization and focused organization doing the work on the ground. And now I will be handing it over to the Honorable, did we have the Honorable Holly Mitchell?
Yes, I'm here.
There you go. Oh, there you are.
That's not working. Let me get. So good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to participate. I am at Magic Johnson Park. I don't know if you can see the cars lined up. As a result of our partnership with LA Regional Food Bank, doing what we have to do with a federal government shutdown and SNAP benefits having been halted. Yesterday, we partnered with LA Regional Food Bank and we were at Expo Park and served 2,500 cars. Today, we're expecting the same. Kellie knows this area. I got off the freeway at Imperial Highway and the cars were backed up and they have circled the entire park. I'm proud to be in partnership with the food bank because they know the operations side of trying to make this happen. But as we talk about the needs of Black women, I can't tell you the number of Black female single heads of households that I've already put boxes and a chicken and staples into their cars, many of whom are SNAP recipients, several of whom are federal employees that have not received their pay. And so it's real out here in these streets in terms of what Black women are facing. So I want to thank Kellie and the Black Women's Collective and all the fellow leaders for really helping to amplify the findings within the State of Black Women in California report. I think that report, coupled with the state of Black LA County, is really giving us important critical data to be able to benchmark where we are and the progress that we need to make. Many of you know that I'm the only Black woman currently serving on the LA County Board of Supervisors in the largest county in the nation, and only the second Black woman to serve in the over 100-year history of LA County. So I can't overstate enough the importance of the State of Black Women in California report. I also want to offer that we look at this report alongside the county State of Black LA report, because I think both documents, again, create a mirror that reflect both local realities and statewide trends. And I'm going to spend a little time talking about solutions, what we're trying to do about it. Okay, see, I'm at Magic Johnson Park, so that's my musical interlude to the report. I love my people. The State of Black Women in California shows us how we as Black women continue to carry the weight of failed systems that frankly were never truly designed to meet our needs. And the State of Black LA County shows us what that looks like locally for the communities Black women hold together. It's only when we can meaningfully address the disparities outlined in both reports at LA County that we can improve life outcomes really for every Angelino. You've heard Kellie talk about some of the data reflected in the women's report. I just want to talk a little bit about the report that's created biannually by LA County's Anti-Racism, Diversity, and Inclusion Initiative, which is led by Dr. D'Artagnan Scorza. LA County created this initiative to ensure that equity and racial justice, as I say, isn't just sprinkled on top of the work we do as an afterthought, but that it is baked into the core essence of all the programs, our service delivery model, as well as our budget infrastructure. So a couple of data points, I'm sure you've heard them before. Our population is north of 10 million. Out of that 10 million, Black people make up about 9.3%. So we're just under 1,930,000 people in the overall population. And so that's why when we address the inequities and injustices that uniquely impact Black people, especially Black women, we're able to really talk about concrete numbers, concrete problems, and from my perspective, concrete results. I want to talk about a couple of buckets: economic stability and income security, housing and cost burden, health, and an issue that has always been near and dear to me as a policymaker, the adultification of Black girls. With regard to housing, in LA County, women are evicted at nearly twice the rate of any other group of people. If you've read the book by the author whose name I'm blanking on right now, called Evicted, you'd understand that an eviction to a Black woman is what a felony conviction is to a Black man. Once you've had that eviction, how difficult it is to then be able to secure housing. And so that's a critical issue that we all really have to pay close attention to. The State of Black Women shows that Black women spend half their income on rent, and single mothers spend up to 70% on childcare. These realities are intertwined, and when women can't secure stable housing or afford high quality childcare, entire families fall into crisis. With regard to health, in LA County, Black mothers are 4 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes than our white female counterparts. And statewide, that figure jumps from 4 to 6 times more likely. So when we are talking about access to healthcare, making sure that all those who are involved in the birthing process go through bias training, implicit and explicit bias training, so they understand our unique needs and believe us when we say something is wrong. It's because of those statistics that it is so important. Here comes my music interlude again. Moving on to the adultification of Black girls. I was introduced to this report back in 2017. It was done by Georgetown University. The title was Girlhood Interrupted, the Erasure of Black Girls' Childhood. And it was reported painfully that adults view Black girls as less innocent and more adult-like than white girls, beginning as early as the age of 5. The largest gap in perceived innocence occurs between the ages of 10 and 14, with significant differences also, again, at the younger ages. And so when you look at young Black girls and perceive them as adults or less innocent, who deserve what children deserve, nurture, to be invested in, to be allowed to be kids, it's no shock when you see the overrepresentation of Black girls in our juvenile detention facilities or in our foster care system. I carried that report around with me when I was in the legislature for years, because the sheer racial bias and gender bias was so striking that even young girls were being really abused by our systems. And not much of that has changed. So on to solutions, which is what the Black Women's Collective is about. What our efforts are about is identifying solutions to these problems. One major takeaway from LA County's anti-racism, diversity, and inclusion initiative is the need for targeted universalism, which is equity in action. It's when you tailor outreach efforts and service delivery practices to the specific cultural context, beliefs, values, and needs of various communities. So here are some examples of how we in the 2nd District and Team Mitchell are trying to put that into action. I talked about the disparity in Black maternal birth outcomes. We helped to create a doula network. When the state of California included doula services in the Medi-Cal program, we knew that that was a great first step, but it wasn't going to be enough. So I was proud to put forward the county's first doula network to recruit more doulas and help match more women to doulas who've proven to be able to increase the rate of safe birth outcomes for Black women. Very proud to say that Cook County, a fellow commissioner in Cook County, has taken our model and is using it there. So when you consider the population of Black women in LA County and Cook County, these two pilots and models, I believe, are really going to change the trajectory at the local level of how doulas are going to be integrated into and the doula value system and the way in which they approach birthing with Black women is really going to be take off and have impact nationwide. Another program that we modeled here that Cook County also replicated is Breathe, which was LA County's guaranteed income. I was very proud to launch the largest guaranteed income program in the nation, and it just finished this year. It was a 3-year pilot. And for those years, we provided $1,000 per month to 1,000 people. And we expanded Breathe twice to include foster youth, as well as pregnant women. So I'm really proud of both the expansion. And when you consider that Black girls are overrepresented in our foster care system, I was proud that we could get direct cash into the hands of our most vulnerable. I am co-chair of the National Counties for Guaranteed Income program. And so we're really going to be excited to look at what the research shows us nationwide on how these kind of guaranteed income programs have helped close some of the gaps we've talked about in terms of housing insecurity and economic stability. We launched a mentorship for Black girls program, and I partnered with LA County's Department of Children and Family Services to focus again on Black girls who are at risk of entering our foster system. I believe that the county has a role to play as the safety net provider in prevention, and we're hoping to make that possible. Crown Act, you heard Kellie mention it. We brought the Crown Act down to the county level and to make sure that our foster youth have the culturally competent care they deserve. And we launched a pilot with a nonprofit, Diversity Hair Care, to provide free lessons for their caregivers to learn how to style and care for natural hair. We've created, provided the SEED grant, and DCFS partnered with us to have the same program in our juvenile detention facilities, helping those young men and women value, respect, and understand how to care for their hair. And we worked with Black judges in the family court system who partnered with us also to make sure that as they were giving out, orders and placing children in care, that they too encourage foster parents to understand and value natural hair. Proud of my community partner participatory budget. My office put forward LA County's first ever participatory budget, which is essentially giving communities of color, under unincorporated communities of Ladera and Florence Firestone, cash for the communities to decide how to invest in solving for problems in their own communities. They identified the problems, they identified the solutions, and $1.7 million was split between these two communities to solve for problems as they see appropriate. It's an international model. We were the first here in LA County to do it, and I'm looking forward to continuing to roll that out in other unincorporated communities across the 2nd District. You hopefully know about our racial justice learning exchange. These are just a few of the examples of what we are doing in the 2nd District and really trying to lead by example for the county to prioritize equity, to make sure that we are investing tenuous public dollars in areas that need it at a disproportionate rate. So in closing, I will say that everyone here on the call, all the organizations and all of you have a role you can play. You can join the Saving Our Sisters initiative that Kellie is leading on. You can start at home or within the organization you're part of and ask yourself, how can I make an impact? I think Kellie's going to talk about a Girls Empowerment Leadership Institute that will roll out that I'm very proud to be a part of, because as we talk about the adultification of Black girls, we have the power and the responsibility to change that paradigm on behalf of future generations of Black women who I fully expect will continue to provide the leadership our world so desperately needs at this point. And I'll just leave you with the words of Latasha Brown, an activist and founder of the Southern Black Girls and Women's Consortium, who said, and I quote, "When you change the life of a Black girl, you change the world." And I fundamentally believe that. Thank you so much to Kellie and all of the partners, the Mount, and all of you who are elevating the unique attributes, skills, talents, and needs of Black women in such a way that we understand that if you elevate us, the entire county will improve. I appreciate you, Kellie. I'm going to sign off so I can get back to distributing food to the people in my 2nd District.
Thank you so much, Supervisor. Always appreciate your support. And thank you for giving us examples of how we can lead collectively. And so next, we're going to bring up another one of our partners, Dr. Sha'Carri Byerly. And Dr. Sha'Carri Byerly is going to give us some insights around what's happening with Black Californians as a whole and some deeper information about some of the work that we've done together to give a clearer picture of how Black women are experiencing California.
Thank you so much, Kellie, and good morning to everyone on the call. My name is Dr. Sha'Carri Byerly, and I'm Managing Partner and Director of Polling and Research at Eviteris. It's truly a pleasure to be with you on this auspicious occasion of the release of this monumental and consequential report. In the words of one of my good friends, without data, there is no justice. And the California Black Women's Collective Empowerment Institute has really been leading the way in investing in the collection and amplification of data that shines a light on the state of Black women and girls in California. I'm going to place today's report in the context of some of the key indicators related to the status of Black Californians overall. California is home to over 2 million Black Americans. It's the 5th largest Black population in the country. So the quality of life for Black Californians has implications for the nation overall and tells us an important story about the possibilities and challenges in building a country where we can all thrive. Since 2016, Avitorist has been polling, surveying, and listening to, as well as tracking the policy priorities, preferences, and experiences of Black Californians. And a good deal of that work has been in partnership with the Black Women's Collective Empowerment Institute. In Kellie's own words, the number of Black Californians, that statistics that I just referenced, it's a statement about our power, our presence, our resilience, and our potential for leading the nation in policy and practice on how to create an inclusive, equitable democracy where we all thrive. Black Californians are the standard bearers as it relates to civic engagement, culture, and the fight for social justice. We contribute to our communities and the broader prosperity of California, which is the fourth largest economy in the world. Yet there remain significant gaps, as documented by the UCLA Bunch Center. Despite a more equitable policy environment, in many respects, racial progress, equity remains elusive for Black Californians. That report, The State of Black Californians, that was released last year, indicates that it would take 250 years for Black Californians to close the equity gaps that exist relative to white Californians. And that's related to pay equity, home ownership and housing security, wealth, educational attainment, community safety, and reductions in interpersonal and domestic violence, and health equity. In California, 1/3 of Black Californians report experiencing racism and discrimination while seeking or receiving health care, and that includes 2 in 5, or 40%, of Black women. In September, Avitorist had the opportunity to conduct statewide polling among 1,200 Black Californians and a separate study among all Californians related to what it would really take to make California a state where we feel like we can live, work, contribute, and really thrive. That study shows that 55% of Black Californians reject the idea that the state is doing a good job in addressing the needs and interests of our community, and that largely stems from poor indicators of progress. Black Californians, 66% of them say having a decent home and a safe neighborhood is the number one factor that would make California a place where they can live sustainably. In fact, 78% say it's much more difficult to build a decent quality of life in California than it was for prior generations. 81% say it's even more difficult for the next generation. Black Californians want quality health and mental health care and the ability to secure a good paying jobs that allows them to support their families. Yet 70% worry that they may not be able to stay in the state long term. 50% have had to downsize, and 1 in 3 do not feel respected or valued as members of their community or their workplaces where they live and they work. There are a number of additional concerns. 81% are concerned about natural disasters and extreme weather. And we know the disparities that exist as it relates to recovery and also the disproportionate impact related to the Eaton fire and other disasters. 78% are concerned about being able to afford quality health care. 73% are concerned about experiencing racism and discrimination in their workplaces, their neighborhoods, while shopping or going to a restaurant. 72% are concerned that they won't be able to secure a stable, good-paying job. Likewise, 70% are concerned about their own job security if they do indeed have a job. Other concerns ranked by more than 2 1/3 Black Californians indicate concern that they'll be diagnosed with a chronic or serious health condition. And we know that Black Californians have shorter lifespans, face higher incidences of chronic disease, despite having some of the highest rates of health insurance coverage. Many are concerned, 3 in 5, in fact, that about increased federal immigration enforcement. And in fact, notably, 1 in 5 Black Californians are either a first, second, or third generation immigrant. 57% are concerned about having to care for an aging family member without the support that they need to do so effectively. 56% are concerned about being able to provide a good quality education for their children. And 54% are concerned about the ability to find affordable mental health supports. This is the overall picture of Black Californians. And despite this, we remain resilient and we remain committed to this state and to advancing equity, not just for our own community, but for Californians overall. With that, I'd like to pass it back to our very, very own Kellie Todd Griffin.
Thank you, Dr. Byerly. As you see, we've been able to capture a lot of data on Black Californians, whether it's where we're looking at women or we're looking at Black Californians as a whole. I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention the Bunch Center at UCLA that's also capturing the way in which Black Californians are experiencing their community and their state. But we also really focus on the intersection of race and gender. And so we are grateful to have Mount St. Mary's University taking the lead in this work in capturing women overall. And we'd be remiss if we did not bring in that perspective to see how there are some commonalities of what women are experiencing throughout California. And so Dr. Krishana Hines Gaither, Vice President of Strategic Initiatives and Partnership at Mount St. Mary's University, Los Angeles, will share some of that insight as well. Thank you, Dr. Krishana, for joining.
Good morning, and thank you all so much for having me this morning. I am honored to participate in today's briefing in celebration of the California Black Women's Collective Empowerment Institute's State of Black Women report. And I just want to say it is always an honor to collaborate with the collective. We do a lot of good work together across this city and across the state. And so this is just one more little nugget that we're able to offer to the community. And thank you for inviting me today. Today, I will be presenting data from Mount St. Mary's University's 2024 and 2025 report on the status of women and girls in California. Our data is very well aligned with the Black Women's Collective report. You may notice slight data differences and distinctions since we're pulling from different years and some different sources, but there's great alignment and synergy across our data sets. Almost 20 million women and girls call California home, encompassing 50% of California's population. In 2013, white women were among the largest demographic amongst California women. Just a decade later, Latino women are now the largest women's demographic. The positionality of African American women remains the smallest demographic at roughly 6%. Now we shift to educational attainment. Of California women, 19% of Latino women hold a bachelor's degree or higher. This is across the state, followed by African American women at 35%, and white and Asian women leading at 49% and 56% respectively in terms of educational attainment. What is the role of education on median earnings? Although this is a very nuanced conversation and has a lot of complexities, the data shows us that where there is more educational attainment, there are greater potentials for earnings. Now, I will say there's also a lot of debt that goes into education, and we know that our educational system also has systemic barriers that are also a threat, if you will, to the success of people of color, given the foundations of our systems. And so I want to just name those complexities as well. But some of these nuances are that in the science fields, technology, engineering, mathematics, we know that they yield typically a higher pay grade. But these are the very fields that tend to be underrepresented by women and particularly women of color. The purple bar graph on your screen, it indicates our male counterparts. A woman with less than a high school diploma will make about $24,000 a year on average. With an associate's degree, those earnings almost double to $40,000 a year. $60,000 a year with a bachelor's degree and nearing six figures with a graduate level education. However, please note that education does not eradicate gender inequities. Even with higher education degrees, men still out-earn women. In terms of the wage gap, for every dollar that a man earns, women earn roughly 87 cents on the dollar. When we disaggregate that data by race and ethnicity, we see that white and Asian American women earn about 80 cents to the dollar. African American women, 63 cents to the dollar. And Latina women, a mere 45 cents to the dollar. On average, it would take a quarter of a century for women to catch up to their male counterparts. And you heard some of those statistics earlier by our researcher. If you break that number down by race, the larger the gap, the longer the time span will be to close that gap in terms of years. The wage gap impacts real lives and represent real numbers. Of over a 40-year career span, Asian American and white women will have lost $730,000 due to the disparity in the wage gap. African American women will have lost over $1.5 million, and Latina women an unconscionable $2 million lost. The real cost measure, it is distinct from the federal poverty measure. So I just want to make a distinction between those two. There's the real cost measure, and then there's the federal poverty measure. The real cost measure calculates expenses such as housing, transportation, food, childcare. So what it really costs to live from day to day. The federal poverty measure primarily looks at income and family size. So not taking a lot of those other factors into consideration. So we oftentimes will use the real cost measure. We think it's a more accurate representation, but both of these numbers in concert give us a full picture. On your screen, you will see that the percentage of families who live below the real cost measure. And so white households, 23% of them live below the real cost measure. 45% of African American families, 30% of Asian American, 51% of Latino families live below the real cost measure, and 44% of Native American and Indigenous households. Family structure is also a significant tenet that we have to take into account. Single mothers have lower economic means. And I want to clarify what single means in terms of our census data. And so single includes women who have never been married, those who have been married and then divorced, and those who are widowed. So all of that is factored into the term when we say single mothers. 60% of African American women are single mothers. 15% of Asian women, and this is across the state of California. So someone may need to mute their microphone. I think Emmanuel, you may need to mute. 60% of African American women are single mothers, 15% of Asian Americans, almost 50% of Latinas, and almost 20% of white mothers are single moms. And so what is the correlation? 70% of households that are headed by a single woman will fall below California's real cost measure. 80% of single mothers with small children will fall below that standard of the real cost measure. And then even in partnered households, 28% of households that are partnered fall below that real cost measure. I know that these can be sobering statistics, but I want to also present to you some of the positive outcomes. California is home to the largest number of women-owned businesses in the nation. Over 1.5 million women lead businesses in our state. Although Black women represent 7% of those business owners in California, nationwide, Black women entrepreneurs are one of the fastest growing demographics. There was a great documentary that I just want to highlight called She Did That highlights Black women in business. Where's the impact? It is significant. Women business owners employ over 2.6 million Californians and have a payroll of over 113 billion. That number rises to about 370 billion nationwide. That is a major contribution to the state of California and also to the nation. Women are also leading. You just heard from Supervisor Holly Mitchell. Women are also leading in our California legislature, with almost half of them at 49% of the seats in the California legislature being filled by women. Finally, I would be remiss if I did not mention the laudable advocacy work that is happening across our state. This is a dismal snapshot of all of the phenomenal work that is happening in our state, but I just pulled out a few things here. I mentioned Mayor Garcetti's 2015 prioritization of gender equity. After our first report on the status of women and girls, he actually launched that largely based on the data that Mount St. Mary's was able to present to the state of California. We've already heard about the Crown Act, which is highly significant, from Supervisor Mitchell, which makes it, which put forth legislation against the discrimination of women based on their hair texture or their hairstyle. First partner, Jen Newsom, she advocated for the Equal Pay Pledge and asked businesses and leaders to sign that they would commit to equalizing pay amongst all genders. The California Commission on the Status of Women offers so many bills. At this present moment, they are sponsoring or co-sponsoring over 18 bills. And of course, today I honor the California Black Women's Collective Empowerment Institute for this groundbreaking report on the state of Black women. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's see, now we're going to really dig a little deeper into some phenomenal organizations that are doing really God's work around holding the hands of Black women as they go through the journey, particularly as it relates to Black women in violence and in the healthcare, navigating the healthcare system. So first, I want to bring up one of our sister friends who have been in the journey with us from day one, coming up to Sacramento in 2018. Miss Karen Earl, president of Genesee Center.
Wow. Thank you so much. And I'm very honored to participate. Kelly knows this is not what I like to do, because I always like to send a staff member who has all the details, has all the facts. But I think this is good for me because, as someone would say, it was my leadership and guidance. And I listened to the women and the founders, and we can go to the next slide. Genesee was founded back in 1980 by 5 Black women who just wanted to do God's will. And I think their brilliance was in connecting with community leaders who had access and resources and could help implement a lot of their vision. And one of those people was Dr. Marguerite Archie Hudson, and she told me about Genesee. And she said there's a group of women in South Los Angeles. She said they have a good idea, but they need some help. And I want you to go over and write proposals for them. And I said, I don't know how to write proposals. And she said, you could read, can't you? You know how they do. And she made it sound so easy. And when I went over 8803 South Broadway, it was the raggediest building I'd ever seen. But inside, there was just something about the work that they were doing to help our sisters. It was all about the Black women and their children. And there was something about it I just never left. Through all my journeys, I just never left. We can go to the next one. And one of the things we did was around listening, you know, and I would focus on where the hotline calls were coming from And then look at the census data. I literally went to the census data, and there was no high school education. Like, even if we pull these people together, pull them out of their homes for 30 days, and what are they going to do? And the children were in the system. Every single thing that was prohibiting a woman from connecting to her future, we addressed. And it was clearly grassroots at the time. And we were ambitious and thought we could do things faster, but we really couldn't. But we held on to our, as I call them, our deeply held principles. And hear from listening to the clients and seeing what their need, checking the census data, working with the staff, what were the clients presenting with. Genesee we came up with our 5 signature programs with family wellness, which includes emergency and transitional shelter, mental health, physical health. I am so proud that Genesee literally has a nurse on staff, and for her to tell me about the high blood pressure, but she's able to address it because she's building the trust. And we have emergency, transitional, and permanent housing, properties where we can house up to, I think we have 150 beds, but it goes beyond just providing a bed. We're able to, once they get out of those beds in the morning, we can work with them to establish plans that they can implement. The fact that we have 4 lawyers and I think 11 paralegal and legal advocates, it's not a luxury, it's foundational, and we worked hard to get it, work harder to keep it. But if we're going to do this work to change the lives of Black women and their children who come into our shelter. And then another thing is the majority of our clients are children, and our job is to do to get them out of the crisis and also let them know that this is not their future. None of this is their fault. And so we move into our prevention work. And my heart is around workforce development, doing a lot there. Even have a new site on Crenshaw, where my desire is to create such a world-class training opportunity for our women. And at the last slide, just list the facilities that we have. We have an office in the Inglewood Superior Court. We developed on permanent supportive housing. It's in North Crenshaw, our emergency shelter, and the transitional, all of it. And we want them to be nice. So when people come in, because we say we can do bad all by ourselves, to have really nice facilities where women can stay for the 2 years, and then for permanent supportive housing, once they're in there, they got it. And we have a new family source center in Heather Hutt's district, who is a phenomenal leader. And here, this is just about, it's not direct to domestic violence at all. It's just to support the community. That was a lot, and thank you. And I'm so honored to participate and so honored to work with organizations that get it and see us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen. I always appreciate hearing, and I've had the pleasure of visiting some of the housing, and she's right, it's world-class housing, which is what our sisters deserve as they're maneuvering through their new journey. Now I'd like to bring up another sister who's been with us from the beginning, Sonia Young Adam, who runs California Black Women's Health Project, and has really been driving change around the health disparities, from data to policy to practice transformation. And she is our source of truth as we think through how to ensure that Black women are not just healthy physically, but mentally as well, and that we're aging into healthy lifestyles. So, Miss Sonia.
Thank you so much, Kellie. Thank you to the collective and all the powerful work that you have done across the state. really the nation is is hearing about, what's happening here in California, and the work that's going forward, has an influence, really from California to New York, from Florida, all across the nation. I'm incredibly happy to be here today, and I appreciate the opportunity, to talk about, what is, this sort of combination of, the best of things and the worst of things. When we're talking about disparities in health, I mean, it's generally, we're talking about a extremely difficult challenge for Black women and girls. And, what is happening with Black women and girls, we believe very much ultimately impacts our families and our entire community. And so as you dig, into this report, which is incredibly, phenomenal with its, introduction of the data, leading with the data, yet also, talking about the solutions and opportunities for addressing that data head on. And I just want to share work that the California Black Women's Health Project is doing, to deal with the data, to address the data, to impact the data, and to work with the collective and other organizations across the state, to achieve our ultimate goal of better health and wellness for the state's nearly 1.2 million Black women and girls. Um, the California Black Women's Health Project is 30 years old. And in 30 years, I mean, we have been standing in the gap for better health and wellness. And today, our work centers around, all areas of health. It's a health and all approach, and even a mental health and all approach. And the work covers, areas of health from preconception to aging, and all of the areas in between. If you look at the data in the report, I mean, there is significant data there, that if you look at it in its totality, it really does address the social determinants, so, and those determinants across all of the areas of talk, you heard earlier talk about housing, or talk about economics, and talk about, our systems and spaces. The social determinants of health, is where we find ourselves at this crossroads um, of disparities that show where we are at the top of the worst list and the bottom of the best list, when it comes to most of those areas in the social determinants. And I want to talk just about a few specific areas that I believe very strongly have the implications for impacting how we work together across the state, how we address the issues together, as the collective, other organizations, and how necessary it is for us to collaborate in the most impactful ways. No one's coming for us but us. We often say that Black women speak to us and through us, and we are the ones that we've been waiting for. And I want to just tell you that the work that we're doing, we use a prevention model of engagement, and we use models of engagement that are rooted deeply in culture, history, our heritage, and the ways that we can build trust among Black women. And so those prevention models of engagement, of course, are the holistic awareness, the education work that we do, the community capacity building that California Black Women's Health Project is doing. One of the things I'm very proud of is that 30 to 40% of all of our revenue are funds that are sub-awarded across the state to organizations, that might be smaller or building or growing, to cultural brokers, to trusted messengers, to people who are doing incredibly powerful work in different areas of health to impact Black women in the areas of the state where they live. I mean, we are supporting health and wellness from San Diego to Sacramento. with a small staff of 14. The report even talks about the underfunding of, Black women-led organizations to do this powerful work. And it would be impossible for us to be able to do it, without an extremely deep, active, collaborative community capacity building approach. And we also very firmly believe in research and evidence and the development of evaluation. We have an on-staff evaluator who helps us to, look to the programs and to, scale them, develop them further, step back, reimagine how, they are being delivered. Because we create community defined practices primarily. We believe very strongly in those, we call them CDEPs. We believe very strongly in those CDEPs and how a community defined practice, which has been developed, with the community in mind, with the community's voice, and specifically designed, to address the community where we are. We also use a horizontal and a vertical advocacy model. And that horizontal model is that work that we do across communities and where we engage the community actively in helping us to develop and build programs and meet the community where they are. But the vertical aspect of our advocacy is the work that we do that is policy focused, that speaks to our legislator. We say that there isn't a public hearing at the state level or county levels across counties, where we don't send advocates, to represent the voices of Black women and to challenge some, policies that are being presented, but to also clearly support policies that are presented, that contribute to, better health and wellness for us. We also work very closely with health systems. That is an absolutely necessary thing for us to do, to create an environment where, there's an opportunity for us to be better received, heard, respected in those health spaces. Also to work with our sisters and our, women and girls across the state to train them to be advocates for themselves and for the community, that where they have their own circles of influence, and to be able to go in those health system spaces and to be able to, ask and to understand and to, demand the quality of health that they deserve. The health systems, it's very important. We know that there is, the bias and the racism and discrimination and challenges that we receive in health spaces, where we need to create that opportunity, for them to serve us better. And it is done through tight, close collaboration with community-based organizations. I want to just mention, two pieces of data, and really you can go through the report. The data is there. I encourage everyone to read it, and we look forward to distributing it widely across our network. The data that you see in around HIV and STIs, we live in a nation where, this challenge has existed for a long time, yet, for Black women, we are still experiencing, higher rates. And, some of the programs that, we have developed to address this, the challenge is that, and I don't want to go into too much detail. I can see Kellie even looking at me. The challenges that we are experiencing there, are not still challenges that are in the media, and we don't talk about them much. So we have a program, a sexual health and empowerment program called Royalty, that I'm very proud to say is making advancements, strong advances right now in only 4 counties, but we're working to build that, across 4 more counties by scaling it and developing it. And then the work we're doing around Alzheimer's. It's a new area of work for us. It's a part of our aging initiative. I mean, with Black women being projected to have a 4-fold increase in Alzheimer's, we know that the systems of treatment, even diagnosis and care, are not designed for us. And we must work together and work across all of the, areas of health to really support Black women in understanding Alzheimer's is coming for us. And it's either coming for us and will impact even maybe me, either as the patient or as the caregiver, where we see ourselves over-indexed in these areas. So I'm hoping to work, with everyone here, of course, and of course, anyone else who is listening and will review the report, for an opportunity for us to collaborate, to address these issues, mental health, our physical health, rates of disparities and mortality, where we should not be experiencing those types of rates. We will work together, and we will continue to address and stand in the gap to support better health and wellness for Black women and girls. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sonia. Just lastly, and then we will open it up to some questions. We have started our SOS initiative, which is called Saving Our Sisters. Next slide. And it's basic. We know that our sisters, Sonia and Karen, have their areas of focus, and one of the areas is even Karen mentioned for us is around how to make sure our data is goes into measurable impact through investment, leadership development, and policy change. And so we have 3 programs that we're really excited about. Next slide. We have been, we've had the California Black Women's Leadership Program for 3 years. We're on our 3rd cohort. We are now have trained nearly 50 Black women who are middle career that are ready to lead or new to leadership. And one of the programs we're really excited about that we are launching with Mount St. Mary's University is the Holly J. Mitchell Girls Empowerment Leadership Institute. And that cultivates the next generation of leaders, and it's for middle and high school students. And we also are launching our first workforce development program, She Works California, the Women's Worker Initiative, and it supports unemployed, underemployed, and system impacted women. And we are doing that in partnership with LA Care and Blue Shield Community Resource Centers. And that launches in January 2026. And we've been doing Black Girl Joy Day since 2023. And we bring hundreds of Black girls in before school, both in Northern California and Southern California. And we celebrate their joy while teaching them about finances. And we are grateful to be underwritten and sponsored by BMO US for that program. So that is our SOS programs. And now we're going to open it up for question and answer. We'll bring everybody back up on the screen and answer any questions that you may have. And you can just raise your hand and we'll be able to answer your question. Media question. And one of the things we'll make sure we do is we'll put the link to the report in the chat so that everyone has the opportunity to go through the report in details. We'll also send out to everyone in attendance, as well as other media, everybody's contact information so they can ask further questions. And I'm not sure, Evan, did you have some pre-questions? Did you have some pre-questions as well?
Yes, and this is Karina. I can help chime in there. We do have some questions. I'll start with the first one. This report paints a sobering picture of persistent disparities for Black women in California. What were the most striking or unexpected findings for you this year?
I'll let some of, for me, doing a report since 2018, I think every time we do this report, we recognize that change is slow and that moving the needle takes a long time. But as long as we're chronicling the change, it gives us hope that things are getting better, and the importance of data collection. We also know that the things that aren't working, it gives us an opportunity to do more intentionality work. We know that if we deal with things more upstream, then our downstream impacts won't be so severe, which is why we're looking at economic mobility. So I believe that the report gives us just always that understanding of where Black women are. And it never really shocks me because we talk to Black women every single day. And they tell us that they're struggling. We have the 5th largest Black population in the nation. And although we may be small in California in numbers, we're large nationally. And so if we can improve the lives of Black women and girls in California, we know that we can set some standards nationally. And just think about that fifth Black largest population, meaning that we're having a huge impact on Black women and girls throughout the nation.
Thank you, Kellie. Would anyone else like to answer that question?
I'm always struck by the level of engagement among Black women, which stands in stark contrast to the disparities that Black women face. And so, although we have some of the highest hurdles to climb, we actually over-index as it relates to civic engagement, civic participation in other ways. We have over 2/3 that say in our recent study that they have donated money, time, volunteered in the face of the natural disasters, wildfires, and ice raids, that they've provided childcare to their neighbors and family members, that they're actually housing their loved ones who otherwise would not have a place to live. And so the overarching narrative in the national conversation, particularly recently, is Black people and especially Black women as takers and as undeserving. And that stands in direct contrast and is really refuted by the fact that we are actually net contributors. We are actually working more than one job. We are, although we're facing disproportionate rates of homelessness and being unhoused, particularly our seniors, we actually, those of us who have a place, are sheltering others. So we're actually providing a good portion of the social safety net when government and philanthropy and the private sector is failing us.
Yeah, so true. So true.
Barley. Dr. Krishana or Sonia, do you have any comments on this question? No? Okay. Let's see, how can members of the public, policymakers, and private partners support or engage with your work following today's release?
I like Krishana.
Yes, I would say we try to make our report event and the data that we offer accessible to the community. And so this is one example of that, I think, where we are allowing us to link arms with the press and other women who are doing great work so that we can come together and hear what each other is doing and offering to our community. And so when we put out our data, I learned this term from Native American populations called data sovereignty. And they use that term to mean that you don't just keep data to yourself, but you share that data. And oftentimes, exactly as Dr. Byerly said, we're receiving that data from the people. And many times we don't give that data back to the very people who allowed us to survey them, to hear their stories, to share with us. And so I really try to walk in the spirit of data sovereignty and how can we give that data back. And we do that, I would say, in a couple of ways with events like this, where we are sharing our research to anyone who invites us and wants us to partner with them. We also invite people to collaborate with us on our report. And so we can't do it all. And so I heard Kellie mention other agencies earlier. We work with the Williams Institute, who are doing amazing, groundbreaking research at UCLA. We use reports from the collective in our own report on the status of women and girls. And then we invite people to contribute to that work. And so that is one of the ways that we try to really enact that spirit of data sovereignty.
And may I add, please, that the policy work that is done, across issues that are impacting Black women's health, are very strong. There are some really great things that have been done. What I would like to see policymakers do, what I would like to see us do, even as collaboratives, is work harder on the implementation of some of these policies. There are good things that are happening, and we do need more. I'd love to see more, work being done around, reparatory health justice, reparations, the work that Holly was speaking about around, guaranteed basic income, even potentially as a strategy for reparations. The implementation of policies that are done across the state tend to be a challenge, which pushes the opportunity, for those policies to have the greatest impact out sometimes years in advance. So, how we can, work more closely with legislators in the development of the policies up front, in the, writing and outlining, what those implementation efforts need to look like. I believe that would create a better opportunity for us to, have the benefits of those policies sooner, because we can't wait, so long. We don't have time, for the most part, to wait, for, years and years for, the doula developments, the changes in, the scope of practice, of midwives, or any of, the good policies that we see. We don't have time to really wait for that.
Yeah, great. Well, I want to thank you guys all for being here today. We will continue our conversations around the State of Black Women in California report. We're going to go out into the field, and we're going to have listening sessions. We recognize that data is a good way. The quantitative points us in the right direction, but nothing is more important than hearing from Black women throughout the state of how this data really shows up in their everyday life. And so we look forward to you guys joining us on that journey. And we want to thank everybody for coming. You can download the report. We have the link in the chat, but we also have a QR code. We'll be sending it off to our database, which, as we have discussed, we have one database. It's like 27,000 Black women and girls, Black women throughout California and some of our surrounding cities, and then states, and then we also have a larger database of 300,000 Black Californians that we'll be also distributing it to. Our goal is for it to be far and wide, and for it to be used as a teaching tool of the importance of focused intervention on Black women and girls to improve their quality of life and their quality of life indexes. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And we look forward to our next conversation. You can also follow us on all of our platforms. So we are at CA Black Women's Collective. Thank you.